Welcome to this session on 5 ways AI-assisted API management can supercharge your enterprise. I'm Madhan Sadasivam, and joining me is Gurav, both of us from the Apidays specialist team here in Google Cloud. We're pleased to have David Micallef from Melbourne Catholic Schools talk to us about his API journey. APIs bridge systems of record and systems of engagement. With the systems of intelligence now in enterprises, APIs become even more interesting in bridging all of these categories. And the growth of APIs is only turbocharged with AI in the mix. In a study from Google, there were 200 APIs created or operated by organizations typically today, and we will see that this number will grow exponentially in the coming years. With APIs growing at this exponential pace, you will see that managing these APIs is going to become extremely hard. And this is because APIs can be deployed in different places. They provide an attack surface that is not like the traditional channels, and they can be of various sensitivity and criticality, giving you a lot of dimensions to think about. API management becomes super interesting in this picture where you are able to manage all APIs across your enterprise, starting all the way from design considerations, the ability to run it in various places, and then be able to then get the value out of these APIs in terms of visibility and monetization and so on. Apigee as an API management from Google Cloud fits very well in this space in offering an end-to-end full lifecycle API management capability. Now, generative AI helps every persona involved in creating and managing, operating, and governing APIs. It allows your various personas in your organization to progress up from being a novice to all the way to an expert, makes it easy for them to go about their duties in the API lifecycle. And we see 5 interesting ways in which AI can automate API management. And these are the specific things that we will see today. So there's going to be a lot of show and tell, probably more show than tell, and we'll talk about this. For the demo, I'll be taking Symbol Hospitality, a fictional company, as the organization. And in here, we'll look at Hannah, who is an API developer. And Hannah is somebody who is tasked with building a loyalty program for Symbol. She needs to design the API, and she'll have to collaborate with the rest of her team in making this API available to them early in their development lifecycle, as well as making it easy for them to work with the API even when the backend is not ready. So provide a mock backend for them to work with. Once the API is ready, she'll have to then publish it to the API management solution and be able to make it available to them. Let's switch to the demo. For the demo, I will first start with API Hub. API Hub is a brand new offering from Google Cloud to manage your APIs and put them in a unified catalog. So this is your enterprise catalog. It sits in the Google Cloud console and captures all the APIs you have in your organization. This provides a way to capture every metadata, every kind of metadata that you want to track for your API. For example, the owner name, the target users, the maturity level of the API, and of course, the spec for specific versions so that this is then available to anybody internally. And then once the spec is available, we are then able to make linting checks on the spec to ensure it is following your best practices. With all of your APIs in API Hub now, Hannah can now start with her ID and then start working to create the spec she's interested in. We're looking at VS Code, and in VS Code, we have Gemini Code Assist plugin available. Extension is available. And as part of the Apigee section in the Gemini Code Assist, you have the capability to prompt and create an API. And the prompt goes like this. It can be a user story that you can directly use. And with the prompt, Gemini Code Assist leverages the enterprise context in API Hub and is able to create a spec that reflects HANA's intention. And you can see that the spec generated has two modifications based on the enterprise context. And in the logs, you'll see that OAuth security has been brought in. Some of the schema has been brought in from the rest of the specs that are available in API Hub. And you can see that this is the spec generated. She can even try it out. So there is a mock backend that is already created, and you will see the responses from the mock backend. The spec also allows her to then create a mock server deployed to Google Cloud. She can also create a proxy bundle and deploy to Apigee right from here using the spec as the skeleton. And finally, she can push it to API Hub, publish it back to API Hub to make it available to her fellow team members. So there you have it. From Hannah's perspective, she's now able to design the API. She's able to collaborate by creating mocks and creating a working API, and she can publish it to Apigee to manage the API. Now we'll turn it back to Chid to continue further in this journey.
Hello. So by now we have seen how API management infused with AI could help through the design, collaboration, and mainly the management part of the APIs so far. So now let's get into the next phases. And here with Symbol, as the loyalty management program is success, they are seeing more and more traffic landing on their sites. There are high traffic rates on their APIs. And here, Natalie is part of a security operations team, and she is a service operator there. So she finds, some malicious activity happening and is reported, and she gets notified over email about the same. So now let's see how she looks at those alerts and tries to identify the root cause. So she jumps onto the dashboard where she could really see here the details of the incident. And if you carefully observe, the incident name actually clusters various traffic anomalies in one. And this helps Natalie to stay away from the alert fatigues. And here there are risk levels of this certain attack which is happening, which is live. And there are proxies which are impacted by this attack and the duration of this attack and the IP addresses, etc. The summary is really provided on the dashboard. Then further down on the dashboard, there are a few sections here. You see the events happening, the total number of traffics landing on the APIs, as well as the incident traffic identified, the categorization of those. Then there are some detection rules, and this is again grouped by the certain detection rules. In this case, it's a flooder, and there are some OAuth anomalies happening here, and the traffic is actually grouped accordingly. And the country of originations. So here you would see it's coming from European countries as well as the US. And there's some additional information about the IP addresses the traffic is originating from. But this has been a usual dashboard. Now with AI, Natalie can straight away look at the insights of this incident. And there is a beautiful summary provided, very crisp summary where, it talks about the IP, the traffic is originating, the countries, and all what we see on the dashboard. She could also rely on this, handy tips in terms of how does she really can go about investigating the API traffic, and she would be then given a step-by-step instruction on how to troubleshoot those, and there are some guide rails around what sort of prevention mechanism she could establish leveraging the platform. So Natalie is pretty happy with that. Now let's move on to the next phase of API management. And that is nothing but integrating with the systems in your IT portfolio. So here, Seth is an IT specialist in Symbol's customer service department, and he's been tasked to integrate several systems, across Symbol, various departments, and his new task is to really ensure that he integrates with several loyalty management program systems involved, and then build automations leveraging that. And the new task is to identify the customer survey sentiment, and then reward customers accordingly. So with that, let me show you something in action here. So then Seth actually lands on Google Cloud's app integration here. And he could pretty much leverage, a fluid UI, drag and drop sort of low code, no code sort of UI to implement that. But with the new magic wand he's got, he could straight away go and start putting a natural language prompt, where Gemini could help him give that first cut of the workflow which he's trying to establish. So with his use case, he's been tasked to receive the customer feedback over an API endpoint, and then extract the details of that survey, do the sentiment analysis calling the Vertex AI module, read the results of that, and then if the sentiments are positive, the customers get rewarded with their points. If negative, there will be additional email sent to the customer about, we are here, Symbol is really trying to take care of their concerns, and they will be awarded additional reward points. So let's see, with this, he hits generate button. So here, now Gemini is actually going across all the ID landscape, mainly the integrations it has deployed, the connections deployed in the organization, and comes back with a tailored workflow here. So if you look at this, Seth says, oh, there are multiple options provided to him. The first one looks pretty close to what he's looking for. There is an integration name, and the region where he could deploy this integration is provided as well. And then he confirms that. So if you really see, the key part here is not only generating just a vanilla workflow given the prompt. It is actually pretty grounded in the context of an organization. And with that, this is the workflow Seth could see. Now, if you look carefully, all these local variables and the auto-generated variables, they just auto-generated. And that actually is enabled with the data sense of a respective tasks, and gives certain metadata about the input payloads, etc. So with this, Seth has already got the workflow which he's looking at. If you really see, he receives the sentiment over the customer feedback over the API trigger, extract the details. Then he looks at, okay, performing the sentiment analysis leveraging Vertex. Now, he wants to know, what do I do here? So he wants to really leverage Gemini to help him with how to configure this task. Now, here, Gemini is trying to go and look at all the APIs and all the connections configured in the given project. So that, and there you go, it is actually suggesting that you could leverage one of these endpoints from that connection. So let's say we'll pick the first one that looks pretty appropriate, where the prediction is been invoked. So with that, Seth further moves on and tries to see, okay, that task is configured. Then once the prediction happens, the results are parsed again. And if the sentiments are seen positive, he wants to be able to credit the reward points to the customer. And the way he wants to do that, again, relies on Gemini to help him. How does he configure, invoking that credit loyalty management API, which Madhan showed you implementing? And here you go. Gemini actually brings in, the actual endpoint he could hit, and then invoke that. And look, it has also identified appropriately add customer endpoint, which is basically a post call. If you really see, that is what is happening here. So with that, In the interest of time, I'll show you the execution on the deployed version of the same workflow. Here, if you see, Seth can go and start testing it straight away. And here he says that had an amazing stay, food was great too. And then he wants to test this integration, and let's look at the outcome. So now the workflow is being executed. It actually invoked the Vertex AI endpoint, and look at that. The sentiment analyzed here is positive, and customer gets 500 reward points. Seth can then go and the actual execution log to see appropriate branches of that workflow are really executed. Here, the extraction of the input payload happened. After that, the Vertex was called, and the sentiment was analyzed. And after that, the credit loyalty endpoint, credit deposition to the customer endpoint is called with the success, as a return. So Seth is pretty happy, and he also could then go to the next level where he wants to really document this workflow. He could put Gemini at work again, and then the generation of the document automatically happens here, and he could insert that document in the workflow so that others can read this document. So with that, Seth is pretty happy and positive. With the new tooling he have onboarded, and now there is a real developer boost. Agility, is taken care, and he's pretty happy with the new tooling and offering to build the integrations. With that, as you've seen, through various phases, starting from design, collaboration, management, through to defense and integration, how Gemini in this context is helping the developers in the API management. Thank you. And with this, I would like to pass it on to Dave to share the API management success story leveraging APG at Max.
Hi, my name is David Micallef, and I work for Melbourne Archdiocese Catholic Schools. We're part of Victorian Catholic Education Authority, and I'm the eLearn Solutions Lead, which encompasses integration, websites, portals, and some custom development in-house. Our schools comprise of 215,000 students, 32,000 staff, 159,000 Victorian families, and over 495 school communities. Our API journey started probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Historically, the schools used to run all of their HR, finance, student management applications in-house, as well as their learning management applications and all of their teaching applications. And that was maintained via local integrations, usually by in-house techs or technicians shared across a number of primary schools. On average, approximately 6 applications in that learning management and teaching space that would integrate with the student management system and the HR and finance systems. And then we made a decision to centralize HR, finance, and student management, and we brought them to the cloud. So what that done was it removed the ability for local integrations at the school. So we're talking about 85 vendors across the 495 school communities. So we quickly realized, okay, now that we've got HR, finance, and student management at head office and their cloud applications, how do we get these applications at the schools to be able to connect? And that's where our API journey started. And I think the first important thing to note there is it started with standards. So the Systems Interoperability Framework is an international standard that governs data around education space. And in Australia, it's governed by a company called NCIP. And basically that gave us a head start because everything was predefined for us in a really well-documented data model. And some of our school applications and other school jurisdictions around Australia had already adopted using SIF. So it was a good starting point, and they also provided an SDK or documentation for vendors to be able to create their own integrations using the SIF framework. The next thing for us was choosing our API gateway, which we used Apigee, and we were able to stand up our first APIs not long after going live with Icon, with the centralization of the HR, payroll and finance and student management systems. The other big thing for us is, I suppose, at the start, you kind of think, okay, you've got these applications in the cloud and we've got a way to connect them to school applications. But you don't really think about processing that data, you know, any transformations and things like that that need to be done on the data. So our data platform grew and our API backend services and architecture grew organically. It was a very needs-based growth. And this here is a high-level representation of our architecture at the moment. You can see in there things like data validation services, traffic control, and data persist queues. And that was around us needing to adhere to certain compliance around attendance, you know, getting SMS messages out to parents before a certain time to let them know that their kid's not at school. So these are the type of organic needs-based processes that we had to put in place, and we grew that as you know, needs grew. Our operational data store is what serves out all our data back to the schools, so they can even create data at a school level, write it back to us, and then other applications at the school will consume that data. So it was also one of the, I suppose, golden rules early on is we would become the integration point for all of the systems at the school level, instead of them trying to maintain those custom integrations between the applications that we don't host. Obviously, as we continue to grow and to get to this, the point where we are now, there's been a big growth in the AI space. And like most companies now, we're looking at how we can leverage from AI to help us with our integrations, or even help us with what we do with our data, and you know, how we might process that data and report on that data. So some of the things, I mean, we're very early on in the piece with our AI work, and some of the things that we're looking at the moment is using things like Gemini Copilot to, you know, summarize minutes and transcribe and things like that. So, I mean, a lot of organizations are probably using them for that purpose. We're also looking at things that we can do with our data in terms of digitization. So how can we pre-fill forms with data that's stored in our student management systems, or, you know, with parent data, parents who have become staff, knowing what context the form is for in our system, whether it's for them as a parent, for them as a staff, for someone as a student, because that would determine what information needs to be pre-filled in that form. So looking at ways AI can help us with that. And that would also be a better experience for our end users in regards to like registration and things like that. So it will help that. And we're also looking at using AI to empower business users to design wireframe integrations. So using natural language to, you know, explain to us what types of integrations they want, where they want the data from, what they want to do with that data, and AI to help build those initial wireframes so that our engineers can go back and develop those workflows and have a starting point. So they're not starting from scratch. It's also a good visual representation of how the workflow will work and the data pipelines will work, to be able to, you know, explain to the less technical business users how that would work. So investigating is kind of where we're at with the AI journey. And, you know, it's all about community, I suppose, looking at what other education jurisdictions are doing, what other organizations are doing, and what our vendors are doing that will be able to help us create good experiences for our end users. Thank you.